Hello, Bright Siders, and welcome to this week's episode of The Bright Side of Life. I am your host, Melissa Bright, and today I am talking to Brandon Janous, and he is going to share his story. It's not an easy one. Brandon lost his wife to cancer 2 years ago. They have three beautiful children, and today I really just want to talk to him about actually a lot of things. Obviously, things really change when you lose a spouse, and I personally haven't experienced this, but I've had to watch my stepdad put his life back together after he lost my mom. And I just want Brandon to share his experience and knowledge and any advice he can offer if you guys or anybody you know has had a similar story. Brandon is a writer, storyteller, and from what it looks like on social media, doing so many more other things. So, Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I am so great. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Melissa, for choosing me. I know you have a lot of people that would like to visit with you for an hour here and there on your podcast. So I'm thrilled to be here and to tell a little bit more, less about my story and probably more about Rachel's story and my kid's story as we've gone through this the last couple of years.
Yes. Well, thank you very, very much. So, kind of to get started, I kind of want to just know about Brandon. Where do you live and what do you do? And then we'll get into all the other stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, with my three little ones. So I have a 10-year-old little girl, Hadley, and a 9-year-old girl, Cooper, and a 7-year-old little boy, Macklin. And so we are living here in Knoxville. My parents live a mile away, and my sister lives 3 miles away. She's got three kids. So we are super close to our family and spend a lot of time with them. I have a couple businesses. I have a business called Fanbox, which we do subscription boxes for celebrities and brands. We also have a brand called Faith Box, which is a faith-based subscription box, a kids box called Hello Bible that we also do. And then I just launched a new company called Beauty Text, which is a text to buy beauty company. I know nothing about beauty, but I loved the tech side of it and the texting side of it, and I thought it made sense. And partnered with a couple guys that got it, and then we brought in a bunch of girls that are our advisory board that understand beauty. And so Beauty Text is my brand new venture that I'm really excited about.
That is amazing. So, you literally are doing all the things.
A lot of things, a lot of things. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I looked at your stuff and I'm like, I just have to ask him these questions before we even get into the story. And I definitely want to look at all of those things. So thank you so much for sharing that. And your kids' names are absolutely beautiful. I
Oh,
love
thank
unique
you.
names. And they're just really, really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, before we do get into oh, wait, we already did that. I'm sorry. I want to start really by asking, how you and Rachel even met. And then ultimately, what was Rachel like? What made you ask her to marry you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we met through some fraternity brothers of mine that went to high school with her many, many, many years ago. I believe I was a sophomore in college at the time. I went to University of Missouri. She went to Nebraska. Long story short, we won a flag football tournament, and it brought us to Nebraska. And her high school friends that were my fraternity brothers said, "Hey, let's stay with these girls because they have a bunch of room and we can stay there and save money." And that's what we were trying to do. And on the way there, one of my buddies said, "You are going to really like Rachel. I'm just letting you know you're going to." And that was his thing. You are going to fall for her. And he was right. The second she opened the door, I said, "Man, I like her. She's got this energy. There's something special about her." It took me 10 years to convince her that she should marry me. But 10 years later, we did get engaged, and it was a chase of a lifetime. And then we're able to spend just under 10 years together married before she passed away.
Wow. So is this in total 20 years? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah,
okay?
yeah. So we didn't date for that 10 years. I mean, kind of off and on,
Okay.
but we were in different areas. It never made sense, and we were both realistic about that. So we
Yeah.
never dated, but we were always friends and there for each other. And if you needed a wedding date, I was there. If she needed this, I was there. And so it was just an incredible friendship. And we
Yeah.
dated other people, and compared other people to each other. And I know on my end, like no one ever lived up to what Rachel was. And so I had actually ended up moving out to Hawaii for a gig in the golf business. And I called her and said, "Hey, I think you should come out here." She was in nursing school at the time, and it was her spring break. And I said, "I think you should, come out here and let's just see, like, is this worth pursuing or not?" And she actually turned me down. I think she was dating someone at the time, so she turned me down, which is fine. And then a few days later, she called me back. I think she probably broke up with her boyfriend and called me back and said, "Okay, I'll come." And so she came, and that week we knew, we're like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And so, gosh, 3 months later, we were engaged, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. And I'll tell you, as somebody that my boyfriend and I have known each other since high school, never dated in high school. I actually had my daughter in high school, so I was dating her father. And we got together years later, and we had been, we've been best friends, we've been exes to each other, but it always just life kept bringing us back to each other. And I was happy that we did have so long to learn about each other and be just friends and all that stuff. So that's
So good.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't change any of it. We weren't ready at 20, and maybe we're at 30. And so
Yeah.
definitely the chase of a lifetime. And I'm glad I won her over.
Well, at least you admit that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So what was life like during your marriage? What were you guys doing? And obviously you guys had 3 kids in between this time.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of that.
Yeah, so we got married a little bit older. I mean, so we were 30, and she was ready to have babies, and I kind of was too. And it's not like we had to get to know each other, because again, for 10 years we were knowing each other. So we started having kids pretty much right away. I should say about a year and a half after we were married, we had our first kid. So Hadley was born, and we just enjoyed the moments. We loved each other well. Rachel is the most selfless person I've ever met, and so she cared so much about my happiness and allowed me to follow my dreams, which happened to be failed business after failed business, and bad decision after bad decision. But she just continued to cheer me on, and it was awesome to have your number one fan there with you all the time. Um, then we had Cooper, and was part of a network marketing company at the time that was doing pretty well. And I was traveling a lot. I was on the road all the time. She was pregnant with Macklin, and she decided one day that that wasn't going to fly anymore, that she did not marry me to be a stay-at-home mom and never see me. So she had this grand idea right after we had Macklin to get an RV and travel together with all 5 of us. And so we did. We packed up our house. We lived in 40 foot of RV for a year. It was by far the best year of my life. Macklin was just under 2, so they were 2 and 4 and 5, and we spent a year on the road in 40 feet of motorhome, and it was the best experience by far of our lives. Yeah, so that's kind of a big part of our journey. Spent a little time in
That's
Lincoln, Nebraska.
amazing.
Yeah,
Sorry to
and then
interrupt you. I have an RV, and that's actually one of my bucket list goals is I want to at least live in the RV for a year. Um, you know.
I'm telling you, it just, gosh, it taught me perspective. It taught me presence, just so priority. I didn't mean to use 3 P words, but that's what it taught me: presence, priority, and perspective. Because when you're in 40 feet, there's nowhere you can go. I continued to work. I continued to do the things I had to do, but you realize what mattered most wasn't always the webinar or the call or the sales meeting or whatever it was. It was those kids, and spending time with them, and my wife, and spending time with her, and actually being in the moment and being present. And so it taught us some lifelong lessons I don't know that I would have ever learned, had she not said, "We're going with you." And I'm glad she did that.
Yeah. So, did you guys ever stay did you travel, was it all for business, or did you guys go off and we're like, "No, we're 100 miles from Mount Zion, we're going and staying there."
Yeah, so it was a lot of that. It was business and pleasure. I mean, anywhere we went, we found fun. Our best trip was Niagara Falls. We were supposed to go for 3 days, and we spent 3 weeks, I think, because we found a campsite there we really loved, and it was just so much fun. And so there was no agenda unless I had to be somewhere to do a speaking thing or whatever it may be. So we were on our own time and having literally the time of our lives, and just learning so much about each other.
Yeah.
Going into a season we had no idea that was coming. You look back on it, and you're like, man, how lucky were we to have that time together.
Right, right. And I bet your kids just had a like that's their favorite thing to do is be in an RV, right? They just think it's like the coolest thing ever.
It was absolutely, and they were young, and Hadley and Cooper still remember it a ton. Macklin not quite as much, but I would love to do it again. I mean, and I will do it again. So many people
Yeah.
when we were on the road, man, I wish I could do that. We'll do it. Like we had
Yeah.
nothing saying this is the right time to do this. 3 kids under 5 in an RV, like nothing about that made sense. I know my in-laws thought we were crazy and what are they thinking, but supported the heck out of us on our journey. And it just, again, the lessons I learned that I had no idea I was about to step into were just so valuable and precious to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like how how quickly after the RV trip did you guys find out that Rachel got sick, and what did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so we had actually, after our year was up, what we wanted to do was make sure when Hadley started school, we were somewhere. So that was kind of why it was a year, or we may still be in it, right?
Yeah.
We knew once Hadley started school, we kind of wanted to be settled. And so we had a few different options coming out of the RV where we were going to go. Something popped up, and of all places, Nebraska, which Rachel loved because that's where she went to school. And so she had a lot of people there. And so Lincoln, Nebraska is where we spent the next couple years. It was supposed to just be a year, and we'd always planned on coming back to Knoxville. That was going to be home.
Mhm.
And about a year after we got there is when we got the news that Rachel had breast cancer. So it was April of 2017, if my years are right. Yeah, that we had found out that, and the initial reaction is, oh gosh, this is not great because it's cancer, right? Nobody wants to hear that word, but it's also, so many people that beat it. The majority of people beat it. It's not
Right.
a death. Breast cancer is not a death sentence. Let's be very clear about that. So we were very encouraged that we caught it early. We were
Mhm.
very encouraged that Rachel was so healthy, and that we were in a position that we could battle it, and that you know, there are no accidents in life. And I had just given up another job that I had terrible insurance with. You don't think about needing insurance till you need insurance. And this one business had crashed, thankfully, to lead me to something else that was stable, that gave us insurance. And to this day, I think about how great it was that I'm not continuing to fight bills on a daily
Right.
basis, because I know so many people are. So when that business crashed, I'm thinking, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why are you doing this to me, God? What's going on? And looking back, I'm like, thank you. Gosh, thank you for putting me in this position to where we would be okay. And we would be able to not only think about trying to survive, but not have to think about how am I going to deal with it when it's over.
Right. Wow. Wow. So whenever she got the diagnosis, I'm sure there's obviously stages. At the point that you guys initially found out, was the consensus, yeah, you can fight it, like this, so on and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. There was not, again, other than hearing, oh no, mommy's got cancer or my wife's got cancer.
Hmm.
Um, we had very little fear. We're like, okay, let's go just beat it, man. Like that's what we're gonna go do. And we were confident in that. And we did. And so
Yeah.
Rachel did everything necessary. We had chemo, radiation, we had double mastectomy, hysterectomy, did all the things necessary to make sure this never came back. And gosh, not even a year later, had a clean bill of health. Everything was good. I remember going on a celebration trip to We Beat Cancer with a bunch of friends and family in California, celebrating Rachel, and we were good. That was April of 19. we're on this trip just celebrating. All is good in our world. Cancer's gone. The doctors literally said I remember one doctor saying, your husband's got just as good a chance as you do to get cancer again. This thing's gone. It's gone. So I felt that, like, I was so at peace with our cancer journey being over, right? Like, that was it.
Right.
Rachel never was. Rachel always had it on her heart that the cancer was going to come back. She always told me that. And I remember thinking, you're crazy. I don't know why you think that. But unfortunately, she was right. And I can jump into that now if you want me to.
Yeah. No, you are doing so great. Like, seriously, I know you're a storyteller, so I'm like, yeah, you are doing great.
Well, we had then moved from Lincoln to Nebraska in May, Lincoln to Tennessee, so Nebraska to Tennessee in May of 2019. So we were going to start our new season of life here in Tennessee. And that July, so that summer, we'd only been here a couple months. That summer, Rachel started having pains in her back. And, I chalked it up to, we're just getting old. My back hurts too, babe. I don't know. I don't know what else this could possibly be. And she knew. She said, no, I think the cancer's back. And a lot of times, again, I know way too much about cancer now because of this, but a lot of times that's what happens. It goes from, your breast and metastasize into your spine. And that's what happened to Rachel. So it turns out, we found out soon after that it had spread into her spine. And at that point, cancer is now in your bones, and you can't remove bone. Like, you can't go in there and get rid of it. So a simple Google search will show you that this isn't going to go away. It doesn't mean it's got to be death tomorrow, but it's not going to go away barring a miracle. And so we kind of just talking to some experts and looking at what was going on. We knew that, Rachel was probably not going to be around forever. But there were people that have lived 10s, 20s, 30 years with that, but the more often than not, it's a 3 to 5 year progression. And so that's what we were facing. We went to MD Anderson. We talked to all the experts. We did everything we could. But it never got better. Tried some different treatment options. And then Christmas Eve of 2019, we were visiting Santa Claus, which we do every Christmas with my kids and my sister's kids. And Rachel actually collapsed at the mall. And so the kids didn't see this. It was such a blessing. The kids didn't see that happen. They were off somewhere else. Ambulance came, got her. We spent Christmas Eve in the hospital. The doctors knew at that point. They did a couple tests and could see that it had gotten into her brain. I remember the doctor coming in and saying that being here is not the most important thing. Being at home with your kids Christmas morning is the most important thing. We can talk about everything else later, but let's get y'all home. And so we got to go home and spend our last Christmas, Rachel's last Christmas. And at that point, we knew that was going to be our last Christmas with the kids, which was a hard one, but also a beautiful one, that she got to have that, and we got to have that. And yeah. So.
Can I ask you, did you and Rachel ever, talk about her not being here in terms of she was scared? I'm going to get emotional, but my mom knew that she was passing away, and I didn't have that conversation with her. And I just sometimes wonder if, what conversation my stepdad would have with her, Kirby, you're going to be okay, or anything like that. I just cannot even imagine knowing that you're going to pass away and what heaviness that has.
Yeah. So I'm so thankful that we did get to have those conversations. We got to have all the hard conversations. We got to have the conversations I encourage you and Brandon to have, should it get to that point of marriage. Anyone that is married should have, not when so-and-so's on their deathbed, but today. because these conversations matter. And more often than not, being in this community of widows and widowers, they don't get to have those conversations because most of the time it is sudden, at least in what I've seen. There's a lot of sudden deaths. There's a lot of unexpected deaths, and ours was expected. And so I am so grateful for the months of time we had to know, okay, this is not going to end how we want it to end, but what can we do to be prepared for this next season? And Rachel was so selfless in that journey and made sure that everything was going to be okay. She had two fears in dying, and one fear was that we would not be okay. So she made sure she did everything she could to make sure we were okay. Everything from the big things and the small things, like making sure the girls had hair appointments, because it's something I wouldn't have thought about, or dental appointments, making sure one of her friends would set up dental, like things like that just would not be a stress on me.
Right.
And so we were able to have those conversations, and they're not fun, but it was so healing to me. I got to heal and grieve with her before she was gone. And so, again, I encourage you to have tough conversations. I encourage you to ask the hard questions. I encourage you to ask to make sure life insurance is in place. I encourage you, all these things you don't think about. I mean, I could do a total podcast on just the things you should talk about with your person on a date night. Like, it's not an easy date night, but go out and talk about these things, because the last thing in the world you want is to leave someone behind. And then there's something called the business side of death. There's a lot that happens after death. And to be able to make that easier on me was Rachel's thing. And so that's the first thing she worried about. The second thing she worried about was that people would turn away from Jesus because he didn't make her better, or she wasn't healed. And that's been far from the case. No matter what you believe, and our, Rachel and myself and our family just believes Rachel's in heaven and is in a better place and is completely healed and doesn't hurt and doesn't have pain and doesn't have uncertainty anymore. And so she was able to lead a lot of people to the Lord through her passing, which was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. That's amazing. I actually read that, whatever article you wrote about the two things that Rachel, her two fears. That was very, very beautifully written. So you guys had Christmas. How soon after Christmas did she pass away?
Yeah. So had Christmas. We were in and out of the hospital all that next week. A couple conflicting opinions on whether or not the cancer had gotten to the brain. So we had a bunch of tests on that. Ended up finding out it was absolutely in the brain. Started radiation on her brain, and that didn't go well. There were some seizures and things that happened because of that. So we ended up in the hospital on January 21st. And never came out. We were in the hospital for 39 nights. We didn't know we were going in there to stay for good. That wasn't the plan. But the radiation continued to hurt more than it was helping. And so then we had to make a decision. I say we, it was myself and her family and my family. The doctor just said the treatment's making it worse. And so we had to make a decision to stop treating and just working on comfort. And so probably the hardest conversation I had to have, which I had to have almost every morning with her, because her memory was fading, was that we weren't doing anything, that we weren't trying to make it better. She would ask every morning, so what's the plan today? And there was no plan. It was to be comfortable. And having to repeat that for 20 days wasn't a fun thing. But again, I wouldn't trade those 39 nights for anything in the world. I had a front row seat to watching people be ministered to. People came from all over the world to say bye to Rachel, and just left fulfilled, left knowing Jesus more than they did when they walked in, left with a new enjoyment for life, to go and live and love. And people came in that room to be ministered to, and I got to be there for every moment of it. And it was such a special time. Even when you're watching your person die, um, I wouldn't trade that, having that time for anything.
Yeah.
It was pretty special.
Right. It's very, very interesting that you say that about everybody coming to see her and left, believing in God even more. I also had to watch one of my great friends pass away from cancer. I was there the day before he passed away. I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks that I think he was in the hospital. And at that point, and I won't get into everything, at that point in my life, I didn't believe in God. And this had nothing to do with like me losing my mom. This was like a dumb psychology class that I believed in. And at that moment, Donnie did not know that I didn't believe in God, but all he wanted was the minister to be there, and he wanted to know that he was going to heaven. Him doing that literally brought me to God, because I saw how powerful that was for him and how important that was for him.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, I wasn't going to tell him, but it would, after that, I was when I really started to believe in, whatever. So I just like that you share that about your story as well.
Yeah, what was so neat about that room, it was so different than any other room in the hospital. And it's not because I'm biased, it's because Rachel just had such an impact on all the nurses, all the doctors. You just don't see doctors crying in rooms very often. And these doctors on their day offs would come and spend time with Rachel and spend time in that room, because there was just something so special in there. And it makes me sad that it's not happening in other rooms. That our room is where it was happening was a beautiful thing, but I was sad that the nurses weren't fighting over anyone else. They just wanted Rachel. They just wanted to be by Rachel, and they wanted to spend time with Rachel. And it just shows you how beautiful her impact was. But I am sad that the room next door didn't have that same hope. And that's what Rachel gave everyone. It was just hope. She never said, woe is me. She never said why. She never, ever, ever did that. She knew this was her story. And the reason God never took cancer off her heart is because she knew this was her story. Her story was to impact people through her journey, not only through her life, but through her death. And I'm just thrilled that that continues to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Can I ask, and I know that this is obviously a hard question, but this is the reality of life, is after, your wife did pass away, and maybe even before that, but how were you guys able to explain this to your kids? Because this is a very important question for parents that could potentially be dealing with this.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that Rachel and I said early on was that we weren't going to whisper. Kids pick up on things. And even though they were young, we weren't going to whisper, because we needed them to trust mommy and daddy in what was happening. And when we got the news that it wasn't going to get better, I was given the task to tell the kids that, mommy wasn't going to be coming home, and mommy wasn't going to be going to her eternal home. She gets to go be with Jesus. But when that happens, daddy gets to come home, because I was staying with mommy at the hospital. And so it was kind of they knew when daddy came home that meant mommy was with Jesus. So we, again, one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have with them about that. But we always were open with them. We were always honest with them, because had I continued to say mommy's going to get better and she didn't, I'm going to have teenage girls in a few years and they may never trust me, and I can't have that. And so I always wanted them to know that there was no secret here, that no, they're not adults, but we were going to treat them. We were a team. We're a team in everything we do. From that RV trip to Rachel's cancer journey, we were a team. And they feel that, they feel a part of that. They don't feel like they're lied to. They don't feel like there's secrets behind their backs. They feel like they can ask daddy anything. And so that's how we did it. Not everybody does it that way. And I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but I'm so grateful we did it that way, because there's a reason my relationship is what it is with my kids today. I think it's because of that, because they trust me fully. They know that there's no secrets. And so as hard as that was to walk through that with them, I mean, they spent almost every day with us in the hospital. They were there all the time until it got really bad. And then they just decided two of them decided they didn't want to be anymore. But they got to say bye to mommy, and they know mommy's in a better place. And they saw her hurting for so long. To know that she's not hurting anymore is such a blessing to them. Is it hard to be the kid at school that doesn't have a mommy? Absolutely. I can't relate to that, because I'm not that person. It sounds like you may be able to relate to that more. To be a 10-year-old and not have a mommy come to your things is hard, but daddy's there. Not all the daddies are there, so I try to be to all the things and volunteer anytime I can. And I know it's not the same, but they are doing so well. They are so, they're just equipped to deal with a lot of things. And they're happy, happy, happy kids. And we talk about mommy every day. There's not a day that goes by that we don't talk about mommy and joyous stuff. It's not always sad. It's, man, mommy made better mac and cheese than you, daddy. Or, man, this or that. And it's all good stuff and good memories. And also there are days where there's the tears, and that's great. And we welcome that, and we're okay with that. That's not something we shy away from. We are all grieving together in this, all differently. So navigating 3 different children grief. But yes, I would just say there were just no secrets. We just don't whisper.
Yeah. And I think that is probably some of the best advice you could give. I had a woman on here, Carrie Schmidt, who lost her son to cancer, and she had to tell her other son, his little brother, and she was told the same thing. Speak exactly like what is happening. You don't sugarcoat it, because that's not going to make it better. And I can see how that is, especially like you said, you can't tell them that things are going to get better and it not. And then you're right. I could absolutely see a situation where, like, dad, like, why did you tell me that? And then, that could definitely have created some problems. I love that you talk about, you guys talk about feelings and that they're accepted, because that's what I feel like the world is really learning now, is like, feelings aren't bad. Like, we can talk about them, whether they're anger, sad, happy, joy. It shouldn't be shameful to feel those feelings. And kids especially need to know that,
Yeah, and they all do it differently. And I think that's important to know. Just like adults, we all grieve and we have different feelings, and the way we handle things is differently. For me, it's writing. That's how I get my therapy. That's big for me, right? For you, it may be this. For some, it may be intense therapy. There's no right or wrong. Like, none of it's bad, right? And welcoming that, and almost like cheering people on for seeking help and doing those things, I think, is important. And I've kind of learned what my kids' styles are, and one is in therapy, and she needs it and she longs for it and she loves it. One talks to me about everything, and that's just how it is. And so she doesn't sugarcoat anything, and so I've become her therapist right now. And the other kind of the same. She's a big writer. She writes a lot of it, and then shares it with me, and then we talk about it. And so we all have kind of our own ways to do it, but just welcoming it and being their cheerleader, not just to your children, but us as adults. We should be cheering people on as they're going through journey, because we all are going through something. We all are going through hard, and if we're not, it's coming. I hate to say it, but like, hard things just happen. And if Rachel taught me anything, it was to love people where they are, and to understand that we never know what's happening to that person that we ran into at Starbucks today. We never know what they're facing. And we need to be a light to them, and we need to be kind to them, and we need to love them because they may not get that anywhere else. And Rachel was the best in the world at doing that, as far as I'm concerned. She did that with everyone her whole life. And again, I got to spend the most time with her, which made me really, really happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can I ask you, 2 years is, I feel like, 5 minutes. It took me really 10 years to process my mom's trauma. She's been gone, it'll be 12 years this year. So for you to even be speaking about this 2 years later is just like astounding to me. So I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this question, but what has your grief journey looked like? Were there ever moments of anger or anything? And for anybody that has not went through the grief process, there actually is a process, although it does not go in any particular order. There's anger, there's bargaining, there's denial. I can't remember the other ones, but there is a process. So, what has your process been like?
Yeah, so I remember being angry when the cancer came back, and getting to grieve with my person before I lost my person helped me so much. Again, not everyone gets to do that, right? Like, I got to grieve the life we had and the life I thought we were going to have with my person. And not everyone gets to do that. So again, my situation's a little bit different. And some people might look at me and say, well, how is he talking about this? How is this okay? How can, is he already over this? No, it's not something you're ever over. There are ups and downs and highs and lows, and there always will be. It's like being on a boat, and the waves are going to come and go. And sometimes they're really big. Some days they're really big. Some days they're not as hard, but they're always there. And I've just learned to be a better captain of my boat. I can deal with it a little bit better on a day-to-day basis. But there's still days I find myself in my closet just crying because it's just really hard and I'm overwhelmed. There was a stage of blame. I don't even know if that's a stage of grief, but blame on myself for not doing more, for not finding the right treatment, for not seeking more help, for not, would Rachel have tried harder? Would she have done more, for me than I did for her? I remember that was probably my biggest struggle after she passed was that, like, blaming myself, because I just, other people around us were getting better, that were struggling with cancer, and we didn't. But then one day I remember thinking, or realizing that I'm not God, and this was not I could not be the healer of all. And I did all I could. And I remember being set free of that. And that was such a big thing for me because I did beat myself up. No one ever did that to me. No one ever told me I should feel that way. It wasn't that I felt judged, but personally, that was really hard for me because I just wonder, would Rachel have done more? And but then I realized that it wasn't my battle to win or lose, and I did do what I could physically do. So where I am today, it's still a roller coaster of emotions. The kids are still struggling in their own sense. All those that love Rachel are still struggling in their own sense. But I've learned there's no right or wrong way to grieve through it. And everyone's going to go at their own pace, but it will never fully go away. And I've accepted that. And anyone that comes into my life is going to have to know that and understand that we have a big piece missing in our life. There's a big hole that will always be there. And I don't know that it's fillable. And I don't know that I want it to be fillable because her memories will always live on. And grief's a hard thing. And I am so grateful to those that have wrapped their arms around us and walked through it with us and not tried to fix us. We're not broken. So those that that are going through something, don't try to fix it, man. Like, They're just going through their thing. Just hold space with them. Just be there with them. Just hug them, but don't try to fix us because we're not broken. We're just working through it.
That, oh my gosh, that is such great advice because people, like, first of all, we're sometimes naturally fixers, especially women. Like, we want to fix anything. Like, how can I help you? How can I help you? My boyfriend's the same way. I'll complain to him about something and he'll start fixing it. I'm like, I don't need you to fix it. I need you to listen.
Mm,
And that's such an important part, like advice to make because death is so uncomfortable for people, especially if they have never dealt with anything like losing a spouse or a wife. They don't know what to say. It truly makes them uncomfortable. And so then they just want to try to fix things because that's all I know what to do. And that's such a great point that you make about that and just holding that space.
Yeah, and to hit on that a little bit more, because people do come to me a lot, like, what can I do? What can I do? Well, one, when it happened, people would come to me and say, what can I do? I had no idea. Like, look, I'm just trying. COVID, literally, the country shut down 13 days after Rachel passed. So we were all going through this thing together, right? And I'm just trying to figure out, this was one thing Rachel didn't prepare me for, was COVID, right? Like, we did not know, like, this was about to happen. And so there were so many people that come to me, what can I do for you? I had no idea. I never had and I was never going to say, I need you to do this. Right? Like,
Right.
so the worst question is, what can I do to someone? Because we're just trying so hard to just stay afloat and make sure everyone around us is okay, that I have no idea what you can do. So my answer is just do. If making them a meal is what you want to do, just do it. Don't ask them, just do it. If sending them an Uber Eats gift card is what you want to do, just do it. If coming over and just giving them a hug is what you want to do, just do it. But do with no expectation. Don't expect them to be there. Don't expect them to want the hug. Don't expect them to thank you for the gift card, because honestly, there were so many things that happened that I didn't know who things were from or where they were coming from or what, so don't do because you're looking for something in return. Do because that's what love does. Love just does things. And those that just showed up and just did, I am so grateful for. Those that someone sent someone to just clean my house. I have no idea who it was, but they just did it, like that to me was such a blessing, right? And to go send someone to take care of their yard, send someone to just do, right? But don't do it hoping you're gonna get a shout out on Facebook or hoping you're gonna get, that honestly, like, this is what, but don't ask them what you can do. Don't ask them what you can do. Just do whatever it is that you think you need to do or want to do. And I'll tell you right now, Uber Eats gift cards is the best thing in the world for anyone that's going through a thing, because what you don't think about is dinner. You don't think about dinner. You don't think about feeding people. You don't think about those things. I'm not a casserole person, so I didn't want casseroles because casseroles will just stack up in my fridge, right? But if casseroles is your thing, do your casseroles, whatever it may be. But those that just did, I'm forever indebted to, and that's what I try to do. Today when someone's going through something, is just do.
Yeah, that's such great advice. I just I was recently on this like TV boot camp, and one of our things that we kind of learned is like, don't, like, not asking people like, how can I help you? Like, that's like giving us homework. I don't know how you can help me. Just do it in the way that you know how. And sometimes it does make it awkward for that person. Like, you might be in like, well, I do need my house cleaned and I need a meal and I need my kids to have a bath, like, but I don't want to come forth and say that. So I just think that's so important that you
I love
mentioned
what
that
you
for
said
sure.
there. I love what you said. It's like giving us homework. The last thing I
Yeah,
wanted going through that was homework, to think about
right.
anything else, right? And so I love that you said that. I'm going to steal that line. That's really
Yeah,
good. Uh,
go for it.
so just, yeah,
I wish
just
I wish I could say it was for me, but it's not. But when she said that, I was like, "Oh my god,"
mm,
because people ask me all the time, like in my podcast, like, what can I do? How can I support you? And obviously I know that answer now, like, oh, you can support me by sharing and telling your friends. But at first I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? I'm not
mm.
sure. So,
Yeah.
yeah, very good point. Okay, so this is going to kind of be, and you have already given such great advice to people, but if you could give advice to husbands that might be
Mhm.
going through a similar situation, what would it be? And you can choose. I don't even care if you want to say, let's talk about, your wife getting diagnosed or you losing your wife. If you want to touch on all the points, please go for it. But what have you learned that you could tell somebody else?
Yeah, so I would just start with just all husbands. Appreciate what you have. Be grateful for what you have. All husbands and boyfriends. Be appreciate your people, man, because like I don't know that I did enough. I don't know that I was grateful enough. I don't know if I recognized enough. I don't know if I noticed enough about what Rachel did,
Mhm.
which I knew she did so much. But when your person's not here anymore doing those things, it gets noticed. And you
Right.
think, man, Rachel must have cleaned 24/7. She must have. She must have done laundry 24/7 because that's all I do. That's all I do. And I never noticed her doing those things. She just did. And, whatever those things might be for you, I would encourage you, husbands and men, to be noticers. Be noticers about what's going on around you. Notice what your person's doing and be grateful for it and thank them for it. And I teach this to my kids. You can't say thank you enough. You cannot say thank you enough. Be grateful for all the things, big and small, because a grateful heart matters. And so I would say to those that have their person, don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
Appreciate them, notice them. Um, I would also say have hard conversations. Have the hard conversations. I think as stupid as this may sound, I think every premarital counselor should say, make sure you have life insurance. You don't think about that until you don't have it.
Right.
So I think that matters. Whether you're the breadwinner or not, losing someone cost, and the void that's left without them cost. And it's something I can talk about now, 2 years out. It's something I probably
Right.
wasn't talking about the day after.
Hmm.
But I would. Rachel was super healthy 4 years ago. There was no reason in the world to think this is where we were going to be. And
Right.
so most people ignore that stuff because they're healthy. Because why would I need life insurance? I'm perfect. I'm great. But I lost a good friend to a heart attack just the other day out of nowhere. I lost another friend to a car accident a few months ago out of nowhere. And so just the thing that Rachel did so well was prepare me. And so don't be selfish with your person. Have these conversations and prepare them for what life would be like without you. It's not a fun conversation, but it is needed. And I have too many widow friends that don't know how to get into their bank accounts and don't know how to find passwords to things and don't know. So after they lose their person, there's all this stress of what's next.
Yeah.
So just have the conversations, love your people today. Don't wait for an awful doctor's appointment or whatever it may be to appreciate what you have,
Yeah.
because you know what, you have them. So be grateful while you can.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I know you touched a little bit on it, but I'm also going to say, because there's two different spectrums, your husband and then you're also dad. So what advice could you give to dads that are going through a similar
Mm.
situation to you?
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. Not that I'm an expert at this at all, but gosh, being a dad's my favorite thing. Daddy's my favorite name. Um, I've learned, and again, it took me. I was so not present. It took me living in an RV to realize how bad I was, and so
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it has to happen for all of you. let me be your guinea pig and tell you that the most important thing is usually not what you think the most important thing is. I've kind of created a new system in my home. My kids get off the bus at 2:52 and I shut off. That's it for the day for me. There are things that pop up. There are things that I have to do, but it's rare because I get this little window with my kids from 2:52 to 7:30 every day. That's all I get, right? And it's sports stuff. It's dinner. It's getting ready for bed. It's like I have this little bit of time, and I don't want the majority of that time being spent looking at my phone or looking at my tablet or looking at my computer. And so I've just had to really train myself to be there in the moment, be present, look them in the eye when they're telling you the story for the 1,000th time that you've already heard, but listen. And be their number one cheerleader. Show up at everything you can, because if you don't, someone will fill your seat. Someone's going to fill your seat. If you don't show up, someone will fill your seat. And whether that's when they're teenagers, whether that's tomorrow, I don't know when that is, but I'm not going to ever let anyone fill my seat with my children. So I'm going to show up, and you should too, and be that presence in their life that makes them feel safe, that makes them feel comfortable, that they know they can count on. Because again, if you don't, someone will. And I'm not about to let that happen. And so just start with something simple. Put your dang phone down. Put your dang phone down for a couple hours. Start there and just watch. 10 minutes to a kid is an eternity. Spending 10 minutes throwing the ball with my son is an eternity. Find your 10 minutes and go do those things. And I think your relationship will change.
I love that. I love that. And something else I want to ask you. I know, well, I think I know, it is very, very hard for men to talk about feelings. And now you are the go-to person for your daughters and your son. And I know there's probably days that you might not even necessarily want to talk about it. Like, I just didn't want to think about this, whatever the case may be. But you also know how important it is for your kids to be able to feel those feelings. If there's a dad out there that was like, I don't know how to talk to my kids about this stuff. I don't know what to say to them when they say they miss mom, or why can't you cook macaroni and cheese like mom? It's hard. So what would you say to them? I'm asking you a lot of thoughtful questions here. I hope that's okay.
So good. It's okay not to be great at making mac and cheese. It's okay to not have all the answers. I don't claim to be a great therapist. I don't claim to be a great cook. We've made it very clear that I'm not great at these things. I'm very open with them that I'm not great at these things, but I'm trying, and I'm here, and I'm going to listen. And you can always come to me, and I will always put whatever it is down when you need to talk, because you're the most important thing. So I think just assuring them that they know that you are a safe place, that when the office door is closed, it's not closed. They can always come in. And if they were not in school right now, they would have been in here often. They don't stop, right? And I've just learned to that's just how it's going to be. But I don't want them ever to think this is more important than them, or whatever daddy's doing right now is more important than them. So I'm always open to them coming in. And so you don't have to know it all. You don't have to have all the answers, but you should be there and willing to listen and let them in, and do your best, and seek advice when you need to. But again, I'll say it, if you're not their safe place, someone else will be, something else will be. And I can't fathom them turning to someone else because daddy wasn't there, or daddy couldn't spend 5 minutes, or daddy couldn't get off his call, or they will find someone else, and I can't allow that to happen. So try your hardest, admit that you don't know it all, but be present and be aware.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. So as you saw on Facebook, I did ask my Facebook peeps if there were any questions that they wanted to ask you. And one of my friends, Nikki, actually wanted to know a question. And her question says, is there one scripture, quote, or piece of advice that you cling to, especially to hold it together around your kids?
Gosh, that's such a good question. There's not one. There's just so many. There's so many different things that I cling to. Gosh, that's such a good question. And I'm
I
trying
know.
to
I
think.
was like, Nikki,
Yeah,
yes, with the
Nikki came
question.
strong. I feel like Nikki deserves a prize for stopping me because I don't know exactly what the one would be.
Maybe I should have sent it to you before.
No, this is good. I think for me, one, I'm so blessed to have what I still have. And I have my three incredible kids in a community that loves us so well. And it's hard for me to be angry or upset or mad about any of it. And my goal is to continue to share what a light Rachel was to as many people as I can. And the fact that I've been given an opportunity to do that time and time again is such a blessing to me. And Rachel's big thing that she was known for is hugging people and hugging them uncomfortably long. She would not let you go. And I would challenge people, and I know this is kind of straying away from the answer, but I would challenge people to do that, is to hug your people while you have them, appreciate your people while you have them, and also understand that everybody you come in contact with today is probably going through something. And it's probably not pretty. It may be a loss of a job. It may be a messy marriage. It may be, a terrible relationship. It may be this. It may be that. So don't add to their burden. Be the best person you can be to those people, even if they annoy you at work, even if you're not your favorite person. We always say love like Rachel, because Rachel just lived and loved so well. And so I'm just trying my best to continue in that journey because I was not the person I am today without Rachel helping me be better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I hope Nikki, you hear that. She'll hear it. She loves listening to the podcast. So, is there anything that I have left out that I have not touched on that you want to make sure that we talk about that you might want, anybody to know about your story?
No, I think this was fun. I think that there was a lot of these topics we could have spent a lot more time on because it's just so deep. And but again, I will just encourage people to just love what you have and hold what you have, and just be good to your people, because one day that might change. And I wish I could have noticed more when Rachel was here, and given her more love and been more grateful. And so you now have the opportunity to do that. So do that while your person's around. If you learn nothing from me, it's love your people today where they are.
Yes. Yes. All right, Brandon, how can people connect with you? Because you do some amazing things and write some amazing articles and do all this stuff. So, how can people find you?
Yeah, you can just find, I'm the only Brandon Janous, Janous, in the world. And so if you just search Brandon Janous on Instagram, that's me there, and on Facebook as well. If there's another one, it's not, it's someone pretending to be me. And I promise you'll know the difference pretty quickly. But yeah, just search Brandon Janous, and I'm out there. And Instagram and Facebook is where I kind of share all my stories and our journey and all the things that are happening with us.
Yes, and he shares so beautifully, and it's just awesome. I mean, we just started following each other, I think, maybe even 2 months ago, and you just share some beautiful things. And that's why I felt comfortable. I knew you obviously share your story a lot, so I'm like, I want to talk to this guy.
Well, I am grateful for you having me. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, well, you're not done yet. I got one last question for you, and then you can get off the hot seat.
Got it. Got it.
All right, I ask all of my guests this, but in your own words, what does the bright side of life mean to you?
Oh man, Rachel. It means Rachel. She everybody was Rachel's best friend, because she just loved and lived so well, and um, she never sweat the small stuff. I don't know how she did that, but taught me through our journey the things that just don't matter. And the bright side of life to me would be focusing on the things that do, and realizing that most doesn't. Most of the stuff you're stressed about today, most of the stuff you're arguing with your spouse about today, most of the things that are just driving you crazy, uh, will not matter in 3 months or 3 weeks or 3 days. Um, yeah, man, just love your people, love your people, love your people. And for us, when all we were focused on was living another day, um, finances didn't matter, the way we parented didn't matter, the stress in our life that work didn't, like, these things just didn't matter that much. And so just do your best to not sweat the small stuff. The bright side of life to me is loving and living like Rachel.
Yes, that is such a beautiful answer. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on here to share your story. I greatly appreciate it. And you should just be proud of everything that you are doing. And I'm sure you are a great father. And yeah,
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you. It's been fun.